I never imagined marriage could unravel in silence. People expect it to be torn apart by screaming, by infidelity, by the kind of betrayal you can point to with shaking hands. But for me, it began in whispers, late-night phone calls, half-truths, the flicker of a phone screen turned away. I told myself it was nothing, that Emily was just protecting her fragile sister, Claire. I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to. But the more I watched, the more I realized I wasn't losing my wife to another man. I was losing her to something worse, secrets she thought I didn't deserve to know, choices she made without me, a family whose grip reached deeper into our lives than I ever understood. I still remember the first time I saw her. Not in the cliché sense of lightning bolts striking or the heavens parting, but in the way her presence made me forget whatever I thought was important 5 seconds earlier. The campus library was never silent, despite the signs on every wall demanding otherwise. Pages turned, pens scratched, whispers traveled like smoke. And then she walked in, Emily, though I didn't know her name yet. She had that kind of stride that made heads turn without trying. Long brown hair tied loosely, as if she couldn't be bothered, yet somehow it looked deliberate, calculated. She wore jeans and a thin sweater that clung just enough to suggest the curve of her waist, the shape of her breasts, the subtle outline of her bra underneath. Literature students always carried themselves differently, an air of mystery, as though every step, every glance, was another line in a poem they hadn't written yet. I pretended to keep working on my engineering assignment, though my focus was gone. Circuits and calculations blurred into nonsense because she was only a few tables away. She sat across from a tall guy who clearly wanted her attention, but she kept looking around the room, tapping her pen against her notebook. That was when her eyes caught mine. Just for a second, but enough. It wasn't just attraction. It was recognition. We met officially a week later, at a campus mixer I almost skipped. I hated those things. Loud music, too much perfume, fake smiles. But she was there, leaning against the bar with a glass of red wine, looking both completely comfortable and completely untouchable. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," she said when I drifted near. Her voice was low, confident. I laughed nervously. "Guilty. I'm Ryan." "Emily," she replied, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, her nails short, not painted. That tiny detail struck me. It was practical, unpretentious. I liked it immediately. We talked. Or rather, she talked and I listened, realizing how much I craved her voice. She teased me about being an engineer, joking that I must be the type who believed romance could be reduced to formulas and logic. I teased back that literature majors were professional dreamers, and she smiled, leaning closer, as if she enjoyed the sparring. That night ended with us walking across the quiet campus, the crisp air carrying our words like secrets. When she brushed her hand against mine, whether accidental or not, a surge of heat shot through me. I wanted to hold her right then, press her against the brick wall of the lecture hall and taste her lips. Instead, I let the moment stretch, too cautious, too respectful. But she knew, I saw it in her eyes. From then on, everything was sharper, faster, unstoppable. Study sessions turned into coffee dates into late-night walks into her lips finally meeting mine. That first kiss was fire, soft but demanding, tasting of mint gum and daring. My hands trembled as they settled at her waist, feeling the warmth beneath her sweater. She pressed closer, chest against mine, and whispered against my lips, "I thought you'd never." In those early days, sex was not just inevitable, it was magnetic. The first time happened in her dorm room, narrow bed, books stacked everywhere, the scent of her shampoo filling the air. She pulled off her sweater without hesitation, revealing lace I never would have guessed she wore beneath her casual clothes. My pulse hammered as I kissed down her neck, her fingers tangled in my hair, urging me closer. She was confident, unafraid, and I was both overwhelmed and electrified. The intensity of it bound me to her, as though we had crossed a line that made turning back impossible. By the time graduation loomed, we were inseparable. Friends joked about us being nauseating, always together, always touching, her hand brushing my thigh under the table, my arm wrapped around her waist as we crossed campus. It wasn't just lust anymore. She challenged me, believed in me, pushed me harder than I thought possible. She could cut me with her sharp wit and then heal me with a single look. Marriage came quickly after. Too quickly, some said. But when you've stood in a storm with someone and felt like they were the only thing keeping you upright, waiting feels unnecessary. I didn't just admire her grace and wit, I needed them. And she told me she loved my drive, my intensity, the way I never did anything halfway. We stood in front of our families in a modest ceremony, her hand trembling in mine, and for a while it felt perfect. I believed in the life we were about to build. Our plans, our dreams, our shared future. I believed in her. But if there's one thing I learned too late, it's that marriage is never just between two people. I thought I was marrying Emily. What I didn't realize was that I was also marrying her complicated family, the mother who would never accept me, the fragile sister who would always need saving, the weight of expectations I never agreed to carry. Looking back, maybe I should have seen the warning signs that night in the library. That sharp look in her eyes, hungry, searching, wasn't just for me. Emily always had a way of giving herself completely while still keeping part of her heart hidden away. And I would spend the next years discovering just how dangerous that hidden part could be. I met Marjorie 3 days after the wedding, once ceremony smiles had cooled. She opened her door with a face like polished stone, meant to impress, not welcome. I held a bottle of Pinot and a bakery box, offerings to a queen I didn't yet know was an adversary. "Ryan," she said, turning my name into a shrug. "Shoes off." Emily squeezed my arm and whispered, "Play nice." Inside, the walls showed a curated history, the sisters on beaches and stages, Alan blurred at the edges. At the center of most frames stood Marjorie, hand on a shoulder, mouth mid-instruction. Claire and her husband, Daniel, arrived with careful smiles. Claire hugged me too tightly and apologized for it. Daniel shook my hand, steady and quiet, a man built for repairs. Dinner played like a meeting with an agenda I never saw. Marjorie asked about my work, then explained it back. Engineering was useful but unimaginative, safe but small. She said it sweetly, like a compliment with a harness attached. "What I admire about Emily," she added, passing potatoes, "is her power to move people." Emily's eyes flicked a warning. I said I admired Emily's mind, her precision with language, her refusal to accept lazy thinking. Marjorie smiled as if I'd remembered flowers on her birthday. After dessert, the sisters drifted upstairs. I wandered the den, first editions, gala photos, board certificates. Marjorie joined me at the threshold. "You're intense," she said. "Emily likes intense men. She thinks it protects her from boredom." "I think it protects her from compromise," I said. "Yes," she replied. "And what she wants is a life aligned with this family's traditions." We both knew what that meant. Holidays here, advice as law, grandchildren on schedule. I said Emily and I had our own pace. She studied me like a person explaining weather to a map. On the drive home, Emily exhaled. She was better than I expected. "Better," I said. She drew blood with a smile. "She tests people," Emily said. "She'll soften." "She doesn't soften," I muttered. Emily's jaw tightened. "Ryan, I love you. But my mother is part of the package." That night we made love with a hush between us, as if the walls were listening. It wasn't the frantic sex of college, it was deliberate, an attempt to smooth wrinkles we couldn't name. For a while it worked, her breath on my neck, her whisper that I was hers. But the question lingered, who are we performing for? The testing became routine. Marjorie had opinions about weekends, which friends were ambitious, or drains, where to live, whether Emily should take a junior role or wait for something strategic. Compliments contained instructions. Claire was gentler. She brought soup and apologized for the salt. She asked about my projects and listened. Daniel's dry jokes surprised laughs out of her. Yet even Claire exerted a pull. A run of migraines sent her through specialists. Emily spent long evenings on the phone in that sister language that excludes the world without trying. I told myself to give them space. I buried myself in deadlines and the gym. Beneath it, resentment tapped like a leak eye. The first real fight began at brunch. Marjorie invited us, just us girls, she'd said then, and Ryan if he doesn't mind. I minded but went. Conversation drifted to children. Marjorie mentioned a friend's grandchild. Claire asked about a pediatrician. Emily smiled at me and said nothing. Marjorie filled the silence. When you're young you think you have time, she said, stirring tea. Time is a rumor youth tells itself. I set my cup down too hard. We're not talking about a rumor, I said. We're talking about our life. Our life, she echoed, emphasis exact. The family's, not yours. In the car I said I felt like I was auditioning for a role her mother had already cast. Emily said my problem was that I couldn't accept guidance without calling it control. The word guidance did something sharp inside me. That night there was no hush to save us. We argued until sentences looped. We fell asleep on opposite edges of the bed like continents rehearsing separation. In the morning she kissed my shoulder, a small treaty neither of us read carefully. I tried strategy. I praised Marjorie when I could. I brought Claire flowers. I helped Daniel patch a fence and learned he was funny with tools. I hunted for signs that family could be a system that didn't consume its parts. Sometimes it looked possible. At dinners Emily's hand found mine under the table. Her nails bit my palm when her mother lobbed a remark. Afterward we laughed in the car, heat returning as defiance. But the ledger was clear. Each small victory accrued interest. The family required attention like oxygen, and Emily had been trained to breathe for them first. I didn't say the other truth forming in me. I hadn't only married Emily. I'd married a board of directors chaired by a woman who did not trust me with her daughter's future. Pressure finds hairline cracks. Our house still felt solid, but there were nights I counted noises, pipes settling, a dog, the faint ping of Emily's phone, and wondered which sound would be the one I could no longer ignore. The morning that question hardened began ordinarily, coffee, email. Emily kissed me goodbye and paused. Brunch at Mom's Sunday, she said. Claire wants to tell us something. By noon a text arrived from Marjorie reminding me to bring the pastry she preferred, punctuated with a heart emoji that felt like a stamp on a document I hadn't read. I put down my phone and admitted what I'd resisted. I was negotiating with a government that did not recognize my vote. I didn't know then how deep Claire's quiet gravity would pull us, or how precisely Marjorie would set the compass to her north. I only knew this. Whatever announcement waited at Sunday brunch, it would not be small. And I feared it would not belong to Emily and me alone. Families have a way of dressing cruelty as tradition. That night, sitting at the long polished table in Marjorie's dining room for her and Alan's anniversary celebration, I saw it plain. The room hummed with low voices, glasses clinking, laughter too sharp to be real. Emily was radiant beside me, her hand warm on my thigh under the tablecloth, a quiet anchor. Claire and Daniel sat across from us, their heads bent together like they were hiding in plain sight. Even Marjorie seemed softened by wine, until her glass was set down with a deliberate clink that cut through the chatter. She smiled, eyes sharp. You know, at my age I thought by now I'd have a grandchild to dote on. It was said casually, but her words were a blade wrapped in silk. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Emily stiffened beside me. My pulse spiked. I felt the old pressure coiling tight, like a hand closing around my throat. Claire's face drained. She blinked quickly, lips trembling. Finally she whispered, "We've been trying." Her voice broke. For years. Nothing works. The table went silent. Alan reached for her hand, but Claire shook her head, eyes brimming. Daniel touched her back, helpless, steady, silent as always. I glanced at Emily. Her expression was devastated. Sympathy for her sister, fury at her mother, fear of what this would mean for us. I wanted to speak, to cut through Marjorie's cruelty, but my throat locked. The weight of her gaze was on me, not them. She didn't just see me as her daughter's husband. She saw me as a vessel, a solution. The evening limped on, laughter brittle, glasses refilled too quickly. But the damage was done. Claire fled early, Daniel close behind. Emily clutched her sister tight at the door, whispering promises I couldn't hear. On the drive home, she stared out the window, silent. I reached for her hand. She didn't move. Finally she said, "She didn't have to do that." "No," I agreed. "She didn't." Emily turned to me then, eyes shining. "Claire's been carrying this alone." I had no idea. I said nothing, because in that silence, I heard something else. Marjorie's voice, thick with implication, drilling into me. "You're wasting time. You're failing us." That night, Emily lay restless, turning toward me then away again. I touched her hip gently, hoping closeness might soften the edges, but she flinched almost imperceptibly. The rejection stung deeper than it should have. We hadn't made love in weeks. Her warmth felt distant, hidden behind worry for her sister. I wanted to pull her close, whisper the hunger I still felt every time she walked into a room, but the moment had curdled. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, fighting off the sense that something was slipping away. In the days that followed, the shift was unmistakable. Emily began spending more time with Claire. Late-night calls filled with tears, whispered confidences. She researched fertility treatments, adoption, surrogacy, possibilities that weren't hers to solve. At dinner, she'd bring up children in abstract ways, testing my reaction. "Do you ever think about what our kids would be like?" Or, "I saw a little boy today who looked just like you." Each time I forced a smile. But inside I felt cornered. We had agreed, once, no rush. Build our careers, our life. Kids someday, not today. But now someday had become soon, and soon was becoming now. And always, behind Emily's questions, I felt her mother's presence. Marjorie didn't need to speak. Her eyes at the anniversary dinner said everything. Ryan is responsible. Ryan will give me what I want. Sex between us changed, too. It used to be playful, hungry, the thrill of discovery still alive. Now it felt weighted, a purpose lurking in every touch. Emily kissed me with a different urgency, hips rolling as if trying to extract something more than pleasure. I wanted to lose myself in her body, in the slick heat of her skin against mine, but I couldn't escape the thought, is this about us, or about her mother's dream of a grandchild? One night, after another strained dinner with her family, Emily climbed into my lap before I'd even finished undressing. She kissed me hard, nails dragging across my shoulders, her breath hot against my ear. I wanted her badly, but the tempo was different, demanding, almost desperate. I murmured, holding her face in my hands. "What are we doing?" She froze, eyes flashing. "We're married, Ryan. Isn't this what married people do?" The words gutted me, because once, sex with her was freedom. Now it felt like a contract. Later, when she fell asleep draped over my chest, I stared into the dark, haunted by the echo of her mother's voice. The family's needs weren't just knocking, they were breaking down the door. I had married Emily, but I was beginning to realize I wasn't just her husband. I was her family's last, best hope. And I wasn't sure how long I could carry the weight of that. The night after Marjorie's anniversary speech, the house went quiet. Emily brushed her teeth with the door open, as if noise could dilute what we weren't saying. She came to bed in one of my shirts, the one that usually made me want to pull her onto my lap and forget the world. I slid a hand along her thigh. For a second she melted, breath catching, pupils wide. Then she remembered whatever she had promised herself and rolled to the edge. "Not tonight," she whispered. "I'm tired." I lay awake, listing the things that had shifted, the faucet running while she checked her phone, searches that were no longer novels and essays but clinics, timelines, charts, sex that arrived on a schedule, efficient, plotted, as if desire were a machine. We had once moved in the same rhythm. Now we were a half beat off. My jokes landed late. Her smiles were quick and already retreating. At work, I welcomed the certainty of bolts and tolerances. But even there, she intruded, a text about a prenatal vitamin, a link about men's sleep and testosterone. I typed "I love you" and meant it. I typed "I feel cornered" and deleted it. On Friday she said we were going to her mother's. "Claire's had a rough day," Emily added. I watched her adjust her earrings. She was beautiful in the way that hurts, clean lines, quick hands, that confident tilt that first set my pulse racing. I stepped behind her, wrapped my arms around her waist, let my palms find the warm slope of her hips. She leaned back into me, eyes closing. Heat rose. Then her phone chimed. "It's Claire. We're late." Marjorie talked babies without saying the word. She praised a neighbor's daughter who'd positioned her life wisely, which meant produced a son by 28. Claire sat small, watching like a person tracking weather on a far horizon. Daniel stroked her shoulder, the same automatic motion over and over. I ate politely and counted the ways I could lift a table, throw a plate, make a scene. I did none of them. Driving home, we didn't turn on music. "I'm thinking," Emily said finally, "maybe we shouldn't wait." "For what?" As though I knew. "For a child," she said. "For ours." The word ours detonated in my chest. I had imagined it, a tiny fist around my finger, her laughing in a sunlit kitchen, but in her voice I heard urgency braided with duty, a clock's click under the melody. "I want us," I said. "Not a timetable." "You make it sound like this is about a trophy for my mother." I didn't say it was. I didn't say I could feel Marjorie's breath at the back of every conversation, that Claire's sadness had turned our marriage into a mission. I said, "I want you to want me the way you did when a library table was enough." "I do," she said too fast. We tried to reset with a weekend on the coast. We walked the cliffs and pretended we weren't checking our phones. At dinner the server recommended oysters. Emily blushed, which made me want to carry her upstairs and bar the world from our door. In the room she turned to me, mouth hungry, fingers working my belt, and the old thrill came roaring back. Her skin, the gasp when I slid my hand under lace, the way she arched and whispered my name. For an hour we were only heat and breath. After, head on my chest, she traced circles. "Do you think we made a baby tonight?" she asked. Victory thinned and snapped. Back home, the cadence returned, alarms, ovulation kits, a multivitamin on my nightstand. She went to yoga at odd hours. "Fertility flow," she said, laughing like it was a joke, but the laugh didn't reach her eyes. The first crack opened on a Wednesday. I came home early with takeout and the idea that spontaneity might rescue us. Her car wasn't in the driveway. On the counter, her phone buzzed where she'd forgotten it. I shouldn't have looked. I know. But the screen lit with notifications from C and D and a clinic. I told myself not to open anything and still my thumb moved. Messages of Emily coordinating appointments for Claire, whispering logistics, promising secrecy. "You're sure Ryan won't mind if we move?" I set the phone down as if it were hot. My chest felt crowded with sentences I couldn't fit anywhere. When she came home, she saw the food and smiled with guilt. "I should have called," she said. "Claire needed me." "I need you," I said, hating the way it sounded. She softened, stepped into me, pressed her body to mine like an apology. Her mouth found my neck, breath warm, and my hands lifted her onto the counter, heat washing out thought. "I want you," she said. "I want this." For a minute I believed her. For a minute the kitchen disappeared and there was only her, my wife, the woman who lit me like a match. Then, against my shoulder, a whisper, "We're right on time for the window." The match went out. That night I lay awake while she slept, listening to the tiny sounds of the house shifting. I had the sense of standing at the edge of something I couldn't name. A hairline fracture under paint. You don't see it until the moment it fails. Then everything that looked solid is pieces on the floor. I told myself we were fine. I told myself love could hold evenness. But love isn't a brace, it's a living thing, and I could feel ours gasping for air. In the morning, she kissed me like nothing had gone wrong. "Dinner at Mom's Sunday," she said. "Claire might have news." That evening the house was quiet again, arranged. Her shirt hung on the chair, the one of mine I loved on her more than anything. I lifted it to my face and breathed her in, clean skin and the perfume she wore only when she needed courage. Desire and grief arrived in the same heartbeat. We would make it, I told myself. We had to. Cracks can be sealed, bridges can be reinforced. But a part of me, the part that knows what load will break a beam, understood. It isn't the weight alone. It's the weight held too long. I found Emily on the floor of our bedroom one night, her phone clutched tight in both hands, her face pale in the glow of the screen. She wasn't crying, but her silence was worse. "What happened?" I asked. She looked up slowly, her lips trembling. It's Claire. The word snagged. She tried to hurt herself. The room seemed to tilt. I knelt, pulling her against me. Where is she now? With Daniel. He called me. He found her before. Emily swallowed hard. Before it got worse. We drove through the night, the two of us holding hands like lifelines. When we reached Claire's house, Daniel met us at the door. His eyes were bloodshot, but his voice was steady. She's upstairs. Resting. Doctor gave her something to calm her down. The house felt hollow, every corner tense. Claire was curled under blankets, her hair tangled, skin waxy pale. She whispered a shaky, "Hi," when Emily sat beside her, then buried her face in her sister's lap. I stood in the doorway, useless. The women spoke in whispers, tears and apologies, fragments of pain I wasn't meant to hear. Emily stroked her sister's hair and murmured things that made Claire cling tighter. For hours I leaned against the wall, trying to be invisible. That night we didn't go home. Emily insisted on staying. She curled into bed with Claire, holding her like a child. I slept on the couch, staring at the ceiling fan, my mind a whirl of questions. Where did I fit in this picture? What role did Emily want me to play? Husband, bystander, or caretaker for someone else's despair? In the following weeks, Emily was gone more often than she was home. She spent nights at Claire's, helping her eat, coaxing her outside, sitting with her through long silences. When she came back to me, her eyes were ringed with exhaustion. We barely touched. I tried to be patient. I cooked meals that went cold, sent messages she answered with single words. When I reached for her in bed, she turned into me but didn't melt the way she used to. Her kisses were distracted, her skin cold with worry. One night she pushed me away gently, whispering, "Not now, Ryan. She needs me." The words cut deep. It wasn't rejection of me, it was the erasure of us. Marjorie only made things worse. At a family dinner, she declared, "Claire is fragile. She's always been delicate. It's why Emily must be strong, for both of them." She looked at me with sharp precision, like I was an obstacle to that strength. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. I wanted to shout that Claire had Daniel, that she had doctors, that she didn't need my wife sacrificing herself piece by piece. But Emily's hand found mine under the table, squeezing as if to say, "Don't." Later, in the car, she whispered, "She almost died, Ryan. You don't understand. I can't let her slip away." "I don't want you to lose her," I said. "But I don't want to lose you either." Her silence was answer enough. The sex between us faded into absence. Where once there had been fire, now there was only fatigue. Sometimes, watching her sleep curled away from me, I felt desire sharpen into something painful, because I still wanted her, desperately, but she was no longer fully here. I caught myself staring at her in the mornings, remembering the woman who once pressed me against a library wall just because she couldn't wait until we got home. That woman was buried now under layers of responsibility, grief, and guilt. And I hated myself for the thought that clawed up in the dark hours of the night. Maybe Claire's despair wasn't just hers. Maybe it was becoming ours. The cracks in my marriage weren't cracks anymore. They were widening canyons, and I couldn't tell if Emily even noticed, or if she cared. I first noticed it in the small things. Emily had always been open with her phone, leaving it on the table, face up, even asking me to reply to a message if her hands were busy. Now it was always angled away, the screen dimming as soon as I came close. Once, when I walked into the room, she tilted it down so fast it made a hollow clack against the counter. "Who was that?" I asked, forcing a casual tone. She smiled too quickly. "Claire. Just checking in." I wanted to believe her. But the look in her eyes lingered too long, like she was daring me to press harder. At first, I told myself it was stress. Claire's attempt had left a bruise on all of us, and Emily had thrown herself into her sister's recovery like it was a second full-time job. Nights she didn't come home, she was at Claire's. Days she did, she came back drained, as though even conversation cost too much. But there were details that didn't fit. The late-night calls that ended the moment I walked in. The hushed tones behind closed doors. The way she slipped out onto the porch in the cold to whisper, her breath fogging the air. One evening, I reached for her waist as she cooked, sliding my hand under her shirt. Her skin was warm, soft, the curve of her stomach familiar and intoxicating. She leaned back into me with a sigh, but then the phone rang. She pulled away instantly, grabbed it, and hurried into the other room. I stood there with her heat still on my fingertips, feeling like I'd just been dismissed. When she returned, I asked, "Claire again?" "You wouldn't understand," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut deep. That night in bed, I rolled toward her, wanting to close the distance. Talk to me. Please." Her back stayed turned. "I'm helping Claire," she whispered. "That's all." But the secrecy gnawed worse than silence. It wasn't just what she was saying, it was what she wasn't. I started to notice patterns. She'd step out at the same time every night, always clutching her phone. Her voice would dip low, words muffled, punctuated by sharp intakes of breath. When I tried to follow once, her head whipped around. "Ryan, don't. Please. Trust me." Trust. The word had become a blade. Our sex life, already strained, grew stranger. When she touched me, it was hurried, as if to keep me from asking questions. One night, she kissed me with ferocity, climbing into my lap and grinding against me until my body gave in. I wanted to lose myself in her heat, the slick urgency that once bound us together. But halfway through, her eyes closed and she whispered, not my name, but yes, like she was agreeing to something unseen. Afterward, I lay awake, her breathing steady beside me, wondering who she had been answering. My own thoughts grew darker. Was there another man? Someone she confided in while I sat outside the circle, waiting for scraps of her attention? Was she hiding debts? Illness? The possibilities tore at me, each worse than the last. I tried to catch glimpses. A flash of an email on her screen, subject line results. A calendar notification labeled consult. Medical? Legal? I asked once, my voice trembling with anger. She shut me down. "Don't, Ryan." I said, "I'm helping Claire." That's it. But it wasn't it. It couldn't be. The worst part was how easily she slipped between warmth and distance. Some nights she came to me with hunger, dragging me into bed, nails digging into my back, her moans filling the dark. Other nights, she turned away without a word. It wasn't rejection, it was distraction. Her mind was somewhere else, and I had no map to follow. One night, after another hushed phone call, she crawled into bed and wrapped herself around me. "I love you," she whispered into my neck. The words should have soothed me. Instead, they rang hollow, as if love had become a bandage covering wounds she wouldn't let me see. In the stillness after she drifted to sleep, I stared into the dark, my chest tight with suspicion. The shadows in our marriage were growing, fed by secrets I couldn't name. And deep down, I already knew, Emily wasn't just helping Claire. She was hiding something from me. The lie didn't sound like a lie at first. Emily stood in the hallway with a weekend bag and the kind of calm that made me feel unreasonable for even asking questions. "Claire needs me a few days," she said, voice level. "I'm taking her to a specialist out of town." "Where?" "A couple hours north," she said. "Don't make this harder." It was the second sentence that told me everything. Harder than what? Than leaving me out, or than telling the truth? I watched her zip the bag and wondered how many miles could fit inside one small suitcase. "I'll drive you," I tried. "No," she said, too fast, then softer. "Daniel's taking us." A quick smile. "It's all arranged." Arranged by whom? I didn't ask. I hugged her, felt her ribs under my palms, the heat of her breath at my throat. For a second the old gravity pulled us together. Then she stepped back. "When will you be back?" "Sunday. Maybe Monday." The pause. "I love you, Ryan." "I love you," I answered, sounding like a witness under oath. When the door closed, the house changed seasons. Warmth gone, a draft in the halls. I made coffee I didn't drink and watched the road. No Daniel arrived. 10 minutes later, an unfamiliar rideshare rolled up. Emily got in without looking back. My hands tightened around the mug until the rim burned. I tried to go to work. I lasted an hour before the coil in my chest snapped. At home, I looked because if trust is a door you can't open, Suspicion is a window anyone can break. Her laptop required no password. The browser remembered enough to reveal a trail, clinic addresses, an encrypted portal, a calendar blocked for a procedure consult. Not her name on the patient line, Claire's, but every confirmation was. Under the toaster I found a printed note, appointment time, hotel name, room number. 2 beds. It should have comforted me. It didn't. The ride north took 3 hours. Turn back, be sane, be generous. Or keep going, be the man who doesn't surrender his life to inference. The freeway unspooled like tape. I rehearsed neutral words and found none. The hotel was a rectangle of glass off the highway, built to forget people who passed through. I waited in the parking lot until my reflection in the windshield looked guilty. Inside, the lobby smelled like lemon cleanser and distance. I asked for a key with the confidence of a husband retrieving a phone. The clerk bought the story. Elevator. 3rd floor. Carpet that swallowed footsteps. I thought of all the rooms where people started or ended things. I thought of ours. I didn't knock. I used the key. Emily looked up from a chair, hair in a loose knot, phone in hand like a note she didn't know how to finish. Claire lay on the bed by the window, eyes red but calm. Daniel wasn't there. A duffel sat open with labeled bottles and a folder thick with printouts. The air smelled like coffee and antiseptic. Ryan, Emily said. Not surprise, resignation. You shouldn't be here. Then tell me where I should be, I said. Because home without you isn't a place. And this, I gestured to the bottles, the folder. This isn't nothing. Claire pushed herself up, pillow clutched to her stomach. I'm sorry, she whispered. I asked her not to tell you. Emily touched her shoulder, then faced me. There's a clinic in town. Consult tomorrow. We're exploring options. Options, I echoed. Surrogacy? Silence. In it I heard all the nights she had chosen the porch and the secret yes that wasn't meant for me. You don't understand, Claire said. I can't, she swallowed. I can't see Mom's face anymore when I fail. It feels like suffocating. Anger flared, at Marjorie, at the word fail, at the way Emily had lifted a load that wasn't ours alone. And you, I said to Emily, where do you end in this? I'm trying to keep my sister alive, she said. And our marriage? I asked. Did you check it at the desk with the luggage? She flinched. I'm not choosing them over you. I'm choosing everyone. That's what family is. Family without consent is conscription, I said, and hated how right it sounded. Emily's shoulders squared. Go home, Ryan. Please. I stood there with the key still warm in my hand. A week ago I would have begged. Now I let the quiet stretch until it became a third person in the room. I'll go, I said. But not far. I didn't leave the hotel. I booked a room down the hall. I showered hot and hard, trying to rinse logic into myself. When the water stopped, only a steady ache remained. I texted, I'm here if you need me. No reply. Near midnight there was a knock. She stood in a hoodie, bare legs, eyes tired enough to make me ache again. She stepped in and closed the door. I can't sleep, she said. I reached for her and she let me. Her mouth was soft and fierce, hungry like the first semester when we dragged each other into reckless places. Clothes fell in a quiet trail. The band of her underwear slipped like an answer she finally trusted. Heat flooded the distance we'd built. Her fingers pressed bruises into my shoulders. We moved together with grief and want layered so closely they were indistinguishable. She rode me slow then fast, breath-catching, whispering my name this time. Yes, and I held on, lost in the raw, selfish relief of having her body back, of being wanted for myself and not for a calendar. After, she curled into me, damp hair on my chest. Tomorrow, she whispered, I'll tell you everything. Tomorrow is a cheap promise, and I took it like a starving man. When she slipped out before dawn, the bed cooled quickly. I slept badly and woke to a message. Consult went fine. We'll be back Sunday. Nothing else. Drove home. Waited. In the silence of our house, the model finished running. It output a single, terrible possibility I hadn't allowed to cohere until then. Emily wasn't just arranging help. She was preparing to give her body away. For Claire, for Daniel, for a family ledger that always found me in the red. And if that was true, then the next door I opened might be the last. I didn't expect the answer to come so quickly, but once you start pulling on a thread, the whole fabric loosens. She came back from that trip on Sunday evening, just as she promised. Her smile was too polished, her hug too tight. She kissed me like someone checking a box, her mouth warm but absent. I held her longer than she wanted, felt the tension in her shoulders, the resistance that wasn't quite rejection but wasn't love either. Over dinner, she said, "Claire's doing better." The consult gave her hope. "What kind of consult?" I asked. She hesitated, cutting her food with exaggerated focus. "Just options. Fertility specialists." Something in me snapped. "Emily, I'm not blind. You've been lying to me." Her knife froze. She didn't meet my eyes. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing," I said. "Why keep it from me?" Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were damp, desperate. "Because I knew you'd say no." "No to what?" My chest tightened, though I already feared the answer. She exhaled, dropped the knife, and whispered it like confession. "Surrogacy. For Claire and Daniel." The word hit me harder than any betrayal I'd imagined. Another man? Money? Even an affair I could have named, fought, maybe forgiven. But this wasn't a fling or a lie. This was my wife deciding to give her body, our life, our marriage, to someone else's cause without even asking me. "You mean," I said slowly, my voice breaking, "you agreed to carry their child?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "She's my sister, Ryan. She's breaking. She'll die if she keeps failing. I can help. I have to help." I pushed back from the table, the chair legs shrieking against the floor. "You have to? You decided this without me. Without us. Do you understand what that means? You're not just giving Claire something, you're taking something from me." "It's not about you," she snapped, then immediately softened. "Please, Ryan, don't make me choose. She needs me." The words sliced me open. Not about me. Not about us. Our marriage had been erased, rewritten into a story where I was an afterthought, a footnote. I saw it all then, every late-night call, every lie about where she'd been, every time she pulled away from me in bed. She hadn't been distracted by another man. She'd been preparing herself for this, body and soul. For months, she'd been carrying a secret future, one where her womb belonged to her sister's dream, not to me. I wanted to rage, to tear the room apart, to demand she choose me right now. But I didn't. I stood there trembling, a silence heavier than any words. Emily wept, reaching for me. "You're my husband. I love you. This doesn't change that." I stepped back. "It changes everything." That night, we didn't touch. She lay curled away from me, her breath uneven with tears. I stared at the ceiling, the cracks in our marriage now too wide to ignore. The woman I had fallen for, the one who made me burn with every glance, every kiss, every time we pressed skin to skin, was still beside me. And yet she wasn't mine anymore. I wasn't sure who she belonged to. But I knew it wasn't me. Grief has a way of burning itself into something colder. The night Emily confessed, I felt like a man drowning in his own house. But as the days dragged on, the panic began to freeze into something sharper. Rage doesn't last forever. It either consumes you or hardens into clarity. She thought she could hide behind noble words, helping Claire, saving family, doing what had to be done. But beneath those words lay betrayal. Betrayal of me, of our vows, of the life we had promised to build together. If she could decide to give her body away without even asking me, then I had to decide what to do with the pieces she left behind. I began quietly. At first, it was observation, her calls at night, her careful steps when she left the room with her phone angled away. I learned to listen for patterns, the way her voice softened when she spoke to Claire, the pauses when she shifted to something she didn't want me to hear. One evening, while she showered, I scrolled through her messages. I knew it was wrong, but the wrongness had already begun with her. Threads with Claire stretched long, filled with logistics and secret promises, clinic dates, test results, emotional spirals soothed by Emily's words. And Daniel, quiet, reserved Daniel. He was part of it too, writing polite, almost clinical notes of gratitude. We can't thank you enough. This means more than you'll ever know. I read the words over and over until they blurred. They weren't just planning, they were already in motion. The betrayal pressed against my chest like a weight I couldn't shift. So I turned to precision, the one thing I could trust. I began collecting evidence, not for the law, not even for leverage, just for me. If my life was going to collapse, I wanted to watch it fall with my eyes open. Phone records. Screenshots of messages. Notes of overheard conversations she thought I'd missed. Even the clinic appointment cards she carelessly left buried in a drawer. I built a file, a small archive of every lie, every omission. Meanwhile, I played the role of patient husband. I kissed her cheek, told her to drive safe, pretended to sleep when she slipped out of bed to text in the dark. I let her believe she was still fooling me. It gave me time. Time to sharpen my anger into something useful. The distance between us grew, but so did the tension. At night, I'd pull her close and kiss her deeply, hungrily, just to remind her of what she had abandoned. Sometimes she responded, her body giving in, her breath hitching as she rode the line between guilt and desire. But I could feel it, her mind wasn't fully there. Every time her nails scraped my back, I wondered if she was trying to claim me or distract me. One night, after a fevered, wordless bout of sex, she lay against me whispering, "We'll be okay, won't we?" I almost laughed. We had become a word with no meaning. Inside, I was already planning. Not violence, not chaos. Precision. Exposure. If she and her family wanted me erased from the equation, I would write myself back into it so boldly they'd never forget. The chance came with another family gathering. Marjorie's birthday this time, another excuse for everyone to orbit her like planets around a star. Emily was glowing in her mother's presence. Claire looked steadier but fragile, Daniel ever silent. And Marjorie, sharp-eyed, smug, watched me as if waiting for me to break. I smiled politely, ate the food, drank the wine. And all the while, the file sat ready in my bag, proof of the betrayal no one wanted to name. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about the whole web, Marjorie's manipulation, Claire's desperation, Daniel's silence. They had conspired to cut me out of my own marriage. And they thought I would take it quietly. But I was done being quiet. I didn't need to shout. I just needed to show them. The evidence was ready. The moment was coming. And when it did, the entire fragile structure of lies they had built would collapse around them. And I would be the one to light the match. The plan wasn't complicated. Truth, when concentrated, is corrosive enough. Marjorie's birthday gave me the stage, her dining room, the lights, her appetite for control, the fuse. I arrived with a pie Emily had baked and a folder she hadn't, grown thick under my desk, each page a small betrayal pressed flat and dated. "Happy birthday, Mom," Emily said, kissing Marjorie's cheek. Black dress, hair pinned high, that scent she used when she wanted the night to go smoothly. I recognized that as strategy now. We were seated by ranking. Alan at the head, Marjorie opposite. Emily beside her mother, Claire and Daniel across, and me placed like a potted tree, presentable, unnecessary. I let it wash over me, china, flattering light, the rehearsed lines. I breathed that last bit of normal air, knowing what I was about to do to it. Dinner moved like a train. The conversation hopped tracks, charity auctions, a new gallery, a cousin's real estate miracle. I watched Emily watching Claire, measuring the tremors. Claire looked steadier, almost peaceful. That almost undid me. She had found hope in a plan I was meant to fund with my silence. When the cake came out, Marjorie lifted her glass and began her favorite speech, legacy, continuity. She turned to Claire with a smile that made me grip my knees. "This year has reminded me of what matters," she said. "Family who persevere. Daughters who step up." So carefully vague the room hummed with understanding. Step up. Not a ladder, a womb. I set my napkin down and stood. Before we cut the cake, I said, "I brought something too." Eyes climbed to my face. Emily's widened a fraction, the way they do when she reads a twist she didn't predict. Marjorie smiled like a cat at a closed box. I placed the folder beside the cake. If we're carrying this story, let's carry it honestly. Ryan, Emily breathed, a warning and a plea. I opened the folder. Paper slid forward like a doomed tower. Copies, dates circled. Appointment reminders. Portal screenshots. A schedule labeled with Emily's name, then struck through and replaced with initials, C and D. Please stop, Emily said, standing now, one hand on the folder, the other on her stomach as if I'd aimed a weapon there. We can talk about this later. We did talk, I said. You just did it in a room I wasn't allowed to enter. Claire whispered, Ryan, small. Daniel's knuckles whitened on his glass. I wasn't angry anymore. The rage had burned off, leaving clean sadness. I lifted one page after another, naming them like headstones. Northridge Consult. Hormonal Panel. The hotel. You asked me to trust you while you organized yourselves around my absence. I looked at Marjorie. And you smiled over dinner and called it tradition. Marjorie's voice came cool and polished. Lower your voice. This is my voice, I said. Tonight you have to hear it. Emily's eyes filled. I was trying to save my sister. You were trying to save everyone at the price of us, I said. You didn't ask me to join you, you wrote me out. I tapped the folder. Our marriage became logistics for someone else's hope. Silence settled like snowfall. Claire stood, thin shoulders squared. He's right, she whispered. We used him like a backdrop. Her hands trembled. I was drowning. I reached for the closest raft and never asked if it could hold my weight. Daniel finally spoke, voice rough. I thought gratitude was enough. It wasn't. Marjorie's mask cracked. We are a family, she said, as if reciting a spell. And families tell the truth, I said. You taught your daughters that love is currency. Emily would pay with her body, and I was supposed to donate silence. I turned to my wife. I loved her, I could admit it even now. The ache made my chest feel small. I wanted to build a life with you, I said. But I won't live inside a plan I didn't write. She reached. Ryan, don't promise me tomorrow, I said softly. You've already spent it. I closed the folder, slid it into my bag, and took out our wedding photo, the small copy from my wallet. We were laughing in it, wind in her hair, my tie crooked. I set it between the cake and the folder's empty place. This is the ledger, I said. What's owed isn't to her, I nodded at Marjorie, or to a perfect story. It's owed to us. No one moved. Even the candles held their breath. I'm not here to humiliate anyone, I said. I'm here to end a lie. If you want me in this family, you get me as I am, a man who won't be erased. To Emily, if you want me as your husband, you can't be everyone else's saint first. Emily's face collapsed, then steadied. I'm sorry, she said, voice raw. I thought if I just gave enough, it would fix everything. She looked at Claire, then back at me. I was wrong. It should have felt like victory. It didn't. Admission doesn't repair a fracture, it only shows the edges. I picked up the photo. I'm leaving now, I said, calm as a blueprint. I won't shout or slam a door. But I won't come back until the choices in this house stop being assignments. I turned to the hall. Behind me, chairs scraped. Emily's fingers brushed my sleeve and fell away. Marjorie said my name like a verdict. Claire began to cry, softly, the way a person cries when they finally see the shape of the thing on their chest. At the foyer mirror I saw a man older by months that felt like years, but clearer. I stepped into the cold and felt the air change, as if the house had been pressurized and the world outside was normal. In the car, I waited for shaking that didn't come. I thought of Emily's laugh, her breath on my throat, the way we used to kiss like thieves. Desire and grief rose together, a wave that broke and didn't drown me. I didn't know where I would sleep, how long I would stay gone, or what would be salvageable, if I returned. But I knew one thing with the certainty of math. For the first time in years, my life was mine to decide.